Hello Virgo friends, I'm Annie Botticelli and welcome to my March 2020 horoscope report for you. This month is a very exciting month because not only do we have once again more sweet aspects than salty ones, which definitely adds to more coherence in the sky, which adds to more coherence in our lives, but the aspects are being made between planets with earth and water. So all of those placements, all of those aspects are in wonderful position for Virgos. So whenever we've got these sweet angles in the sky that connect in with your sign, it always sets you up to have a higher probability of smoothness and positive things occurring in your life. Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about some more of the energies of the general transits and how they will likely affect Virgo placements. We're going to talk about some important dates to note that you can put in your calendar. And we're going to talk about Saturn moving into Aquarius and what this means for Virgo placements and some very important things to know about the movement of Saturn this year in 2020. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is some specifics about this water and earth movement of the personal planets. When we're looking at a monthly horoscope, the things that change the most tend to be the planets that are closest to us. The Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Mars, Venus. And those are the ones that are different, month to month. The outer planets, the ones furthest from us, take a while to move around. So it's very rare that those planets do something like change a sign, like is happening this month with Saturn, which that's why we're going to talk about it. But really what we're looking at as far as like the general climate changing month to month is these ones closer to us. So Mercury is continuing its retrograde process. It's going to dip back a little bit into Aquarius, but then go right back into Pisces. And all of that is happening opposing your sign. The Sun is still opposing your sign for most of the month as well. Oppositions are these really interesting aspects. To understand the flavor of an aspect and how it may affect you and what you may experience from it, it's helpful to understand the aspect itself. So oppositions are when planets are 180 degrees apart. So they exert this like pushing and pulling effect. They can pull and that can feel like there's antagonism or something working against you. Or it could mean that two areas of life are equally as engaged in your experience, and so they're competing for your attention. And so that can create overstimulation. So take note every year as the planets move through Pisces and see if you have extra overstimulation at that time. It does tend to happen when we have this aspect occurring that occurs. So it's fun if you kind of like pay attention and notice, hey, kind of every year around this time I have this certain thing that goes on. This helps you to become more in sync with the planetary transits. The planets moving through a water sign in some ways counteract this logical energy of Virgo, this thinking, this logic, this mundane, practical energy. Then the water planets come in and say, intuition, artistic expression for the sake of itself, not necessarily for anything practical, quiet time instead of being busy and getting everything done. So these types of energies are going to show up, so it's like the chaos versus the form, the abstract versus the tangible, and the lesser seen versus the more seen. So these themes you'll notice come up a lot at this time, and they're going to come up this month. Mercury is going to be retrograde until around the 9th, so you can put that in your calendar. Usually the days before and after the actual movement of direction tend to get a little bit more haywire as far as plans changing, a little bit of uncertainty, things being called into question. If opportunities have come to you, which I have no doubt that they will in very many cases because of what I'm telling you about these oppositions, but also because Venus and Mars are going to be moving through Earth signs, and that's going to make a trine with your placement. We're going to get back to that. But I want to stay focused on this Mercury retrograde point. So if these opportunities to take action, to follow through with something that comes your way, to move forward with anything, to make decisions, if anything like that comes in and you have impetus to do that, you're more likely going to have more information about the situation that can help you make your decision, and more clarity, all moving towards the end of the month. So every day after around the 9th, depending on your time zone, that could stagger just a bit, but towards March 30th as we move, the hangover for Mercury having been retrograde starts to wear off. And when that happens, we get more clarity, we get more certainty, we get the information about things that came in, and we can make better decisions. So the next pieces to mark in your calendar are March 30th through April 9th. And this shows the last window of the whole year of 2020 where we don't have any personal planet retrograde or their shadow period influencing. And this is really important because the retrograde energies that dominate this year of 2020 that I've been talking about forever so that you can be prepared for this are more inward and backward. They lend themselves more to reconsidering, redoing, revamping, editing, going back to old things, going internal, taking care of things closer to you rather than like the big launches and the extreme, decisions. So between March 30th and April 9th, we've ended the Mercury retrograde transit, including the post-shadow transit, and we haven't yet started the Venus retrograde pre-transit shadow period, which starts after April 9th. So anything that you have to do that you didn't get done by the first days of February, I've been talking about like trying to launch things by then, you've got this window, and you're going to have lots of energy of the planets starting to move into Aries for your gusto, for your oomph, for your blasting forward. So big decisions, launches, contracts, anything that you have to have more clarity and oomph for, feel into pushing those more towards the end of the month. It doesn't have to exactly be March 30th through April 9th, but those are the days that are actually completely clear. But as you get closer to the 30th and as you're just a little bit off of the 9th, these days are going to be more clear than in either direction, okay? So the next date to put in your calendar is March 21st, and this is the start of the new astrological year. January starts our new year, but when the sun moves into Aries starts the astrological year, and this is a time of new beginnings, zest, things pushing forward, changing of a season. It's a cardinal energy that pushes things forward. So that's an important time to note. And March 24th is the kickoff party. That's when the new moon in Aries occurs. And the new moon in Aries is like the party for the new year. It's a little delayed. And that's like one of the best times of the whole year to do vision boards. Astrological power periods are times when the universe is more receptive to our wishes, our intentions, our efforts. So if you have seed planting, things that you're trying to move forward, anything big that you're trying to do, you're going to have that bursting, like the bursting of spring, or for y'all down under, the bursting of the energy moving from summer into fall. These seasonal changes are what these cardinal signs represent, and they have a similar energy of this bursting, of this newness, of this change. Okay, so now let's get back to Venus and Mars both moving through Earth signs, because this is really important for Virgo placements because you are an Earth sign, and the most wonderful, harmonious, helpful, benevolent aspect in all of astrology is the 120-degree angle, which is the trine. So I'm always chasing trines, trining to see where they're going to show up, because that's going to bring the best energy. So you guys have long-term energy of trines because there are lots of outer planet energies moving through Capricorn, which has been trining Virgo energies. But now in the short term, you have an additional boost. Venus rules love, beauty, and money, so expect possible boosts there. Mars rules your ambition, your capacity to get things done, your capacity to pull things through and be efficient and accomplish things and get recognition for them. So you've got all of that combining in this beautiful way. Plus, we still have Uranus, and we're going to have for a very long time, moving through the Earth sign of Taurus. And that means that you've got even more support besides the outer planets that are in Capricorn, boosting things for you. So hopefully as a Virgo, you're noticing, and I know from Virgos close to me that I talk to, there are things that are gelling for you all, because of this, and maybe you didn't know that this is why, but this is part of the reason why. So besides those long-term themes happening, you also have a short-term boost here, and it's very exciting. So hopefully you'll be able to do lots of things with this, and lots of wonderful things will come your way. Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about is this movement of Saturn into Aquarius. As I was talking about before, it's not very common that an outer planet, the ones further from us, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, move into a different sign. It's years in between the time this happens. So when it happens, it's a big hullabaloo, and we want to know what's going to be different about it and how that's going to affect us. So the first important thing to know is that as Saturn moves into Aquarius, it's moving out of the resonance that it has been in for years with your placement, okay? So that doesn't necessarily have to mean anything huge, but just, well, it does kind of, really. You might not notice it, is what I'm trying to say, because these outer planets seem to be working more as backdrop themes, not always right in your face, although the transits aspects will tend to have them bubble up in your face periodically, but it's kind of happening behind the scenes, you know, as a back theme. But Saturn moving into Aquarius is at an awkward angle for you. So that means that the planet of accomplishment, the planet of recognition, the planet of, you know, long-term stability and long-term gains is pushed into a realm that might make you go into places that are different than how you usually do things. Hard work, discipline, consistency, which is what Saturn was talking about in Capricorn. You're good with that, right? Virgo energy is consistent with that. Now, Aquarius energy is saying, okay, now apply that discipline, consistency, hard work into these realms of new thinking, not traditional things. You know, things that are technologically advanced, things that have to do with, you know, futuristic thinking. So like taking technology and applying it to your traditional way of doing things, or stepping into futuristic types of things that were not maybe what you were comfortable with before, and new expanded ideas of things. Okay, so it's going to break open a lot of things for you, crack open a lot of limiting beliefs. If you've been doing work consciously on cracking open limiting beliefs and getting out of a matrix that you've been stuck in, this is going to be really good news for you, because it's going to help you to get there. But just kind of know that the way that it's moving between now and March of 2023, for the most part, except a quick dip back into Capricorn sometime this year, and I will tell you about that in a second, it's going to take a little bit of a stretch for you in order to get to where you're trying to be. Okay, so just kind of have those points ringing in your ears as they present, like kind of like an alert, like, okay, maybe this is something that Annie was talking about, of having to stretch out of my comfort zone, you know, stretch my beliefs, things like that. That's the first thing to know. The second thing to know is that even though everyone's talking about Saturn moving into Aquarius, it's only going to be in Aquarius for a few months. It's only going to get up to 1 degree of Aquarius. Okay, there's 30 degrees in a sign. It moves 0 degree, 1 degree, kind of like it's plodding through a track here. It's only going to get up to 1 degree, and then it's going to go retrograde and go back into Capricorn. Okay, so from June to December, Saturn's actually going to be back in Capricorn. So all of those things of the smoothness, especially for those of you towards the end of the sign, this is going to be great for all of you, but you know, those of you at the end of the sign are going to have like a special extra boost from this placement. So that's exciting. So then in December, it will go back in Aquarius, but it's not really until 2021 that Saturn really gets into Aquarius. So if you're hearing people talk about Saturn's going to be in the 6th house, and this is what this means, don't be surprised if those themes are not present for you at all, or in a big way until like 2021 or later, because depending on where you're at in the sign, the people later in the sign are going to have the experience of Saturn moving into the 6th house later in the time that Saturn's moving through Aquarius. It's staggered, all right? But unless you're at the very beginning of the sign, you're not actually going to have a huge influence of Saturn in the 6th house this year at all. All right, so that's the first thing that I wanted you to know. Now let's talk about what Saturn is doing in the 5th house, because that's where it's going to predominantly be for you still. And then we'll give some information about where it's going so that you can plan ahead, and also for those of you who are earlier in the sign that will start to feel this. Okay, so like we talked about before, to understand how something may affect you, we have to go a little bit deeper into what the energy is of that placement. So Saturn rules the hard work, the discipline, the consistency. It's the stern taskmaster that wants you to get everything done and climb the, mountain of accomplishments and have stability and long-term success. And in order to do that, it wants you to apply discipline. Now, most Virgos have a lot of discipline, okay, especially if you have a lot of Virgo placements. But what usually Saturn is wanting you to do is apply discipline in the places where you don't have it, okay? So it could be fine-tuning lessons of responsibility, in areas of your life where you already feel like you kind of got it. But where you need to be asking yourself these deeper questions and where Saturn might be showing up things for you is where you don't have it. All right, so specifically, Saturn has been working for Virgos, the 5th house, and it will continue to do this even for you early placements for 2020, all right? And that means that Saturn's doing its work with children, creativity, your creative projects, your craft, your talents, your gifts, and also in your romantic section, and also in your like fun, pleasure, hobbies, and possibly like hobbies to the nth degree, which could be addictions, okay? So if you engage in behaviors that you know are not good for you, and maybe you've justified them because they're your release from being disciplined in other areas, Saturn might be saying, hey, it's time to rein those things in. Saturn might also be saying, in order to have the love experience that you want, you've got to do some inner work and possibly outer work and work hard and show up more within your relationships, or do your inner work if in the absence of a relationship in order to get to the gold in your present and future relationships. It does feature romance, but there could be other strands that relate to all relationships. So Saturn puts pressure on things, and for many of you, Saturn's been putting pressure on your relationship space, especially your romantic sector. For some of you, that can mean you've had a dry spell, and so when Saturn gets out, by the way, it brings gifts. So wherever Saturn's putting this pressure, it's likely to bring gifts. So if you've had a massive dry spell in your romantic experience and Saturn has been the culprit, when Saturn leaves that placement, it's likely to bring a gift, sometimes in the form of new love or improved love in your current situation. And in any case, it's testing your relationship. So it's like saying, is this going to make the long-term cut? Does this have what it takes to grow? And if it doesn't, it may break your relationships. If it does, it's going to make them stronger and bring you closer to that person, who is representing this energy. Having to do with children, it could mean that you need more discipline involving your children, or it could mean that they need more focus, or they need more attention, or things that you have been not focusing on, they may need. For some people, you may be trying to have a baby, and you may be having miscarriages, or fertility issues, or something where there's like some kind of heaviness going on in your process of trying to create a baby. And so Saturn wants you to go deep into the medical things, the diagnostics, the energy work, the fears, all of the things, again, applying discipline to work to make this happen. And it's happened many times that I've seen where people are having trouble in this child sector, but then as soon as Saturn leaves, a baby comes in whatever form, through adoption or through birth, or there's a difficulty with a child and Saturn is kind of making it more difficult, and then Saturn leaves and then it gets easier and you get the gift. So those of you who are very early in the Virgo placements, you might start seeing whispers of the gift coming in. And then the gift might not come until 2021, or might not get solidified until then. The rest of you, you have more work to do, and your gifts are going to come anywhere between 2021 and 2023, staggered depending on where your exact placement is, okay? So that's Saturn in the 5th. Saturn moving into the 6th wants you to apply, and the reason I want you to pay attention to this, even though I've just told you that for many of you it's not going to be current this year, is because themes may come in. First of all, that may happen. Second of all, if you do work proactively with Saturn, Saturn loves proactive work. So if you do work proactively with Saturn, that by the time it actually gets into your 6th house really solidly, you may be able to offset potential problems and be able to convert to the positive end of Saturn. Okay, so let's go back for a second to talk about this. We talked about what Saturn wants you to do and what Saturn's difficult part is. The highest expression of Saturn is it can manifest into form everything that you want. It's the pure manifestation planet. So it can manifest your perfect child experience. It can manifest your perfect creativity or creative babies. This also works for creative babies. You may have to work hard on your acting or your dancing or your gifts your athleticism, and then you get to the gold. You may have to work hard to get the recognition, but that's what Saturn wants for you. And the way you do it is through that hard work cycle. Or like you have to work hard with your creative projects and then you birth them, something like that. So this energy of Saturn, we want it to be manifestation, accomplishment, positive outcomes, long-term stability, long-term gains. And then you apply the principles of Saturn in order to get there. So now, as it's moving into your house of work, it's a house of like your daily work, your routine. For those of you who are self-employed, it's your business. For those of you who work in an office, it's your office dynamics and experience. It also has to do with your health and your lifestyle. So Saturn is going to be moving to put more pressure on those places. So if you have anything awry with your health and your habits, it may be good to start to get a handle on those now so that Saturn doesn't come and have to bring heaviness to your health sector when it actually really gets there. Okay, so getting diagnostics, getting a routine, changing your diet, reducing stress, anything like that is what Saturn really wants you to do in this case. Saturn moving into the 6th house also can have to do with animals, pets, or working with animals. And so it could bring the energy of heaviness or challenges with animals, or it could bring manifestation. Like let's say you're trying to start a pet sitting business. It can help there. Let's say you're trying to do therapy with animals as your work or as a patient. It can help there. Let's say you are looking for your perfect forever furry or feathered friend or scaled or whatever it is. Saturn can bring a long-term animal experience into your life. So that's also a way I've seen it manifest. Okay, so overall, I think a really auspicious month for Virgo placements because of what I've explained with the water and the earth signs matching beautifully with yours. Still some overstimulation, busyness, work, things you've got to do, a little bit of confusion and murkiness, maybe as to not know what to do with some of the things coming in because of the Pisces confusion. Emotions are going to be featured, which conflict with the logical focus of the Virgo energies. So taking time for your emotions and for other people's emotions, conquering your fears, conquering addictions, getting disciplined in the areas where you're not disciplined, or kind of balancing out or doing a little more where you are, where it's needed. And then, of course, these things that we talked about with Saturn. So if you'd like to have more information on astrology and how it can help you, and specifically the energy of this month, definitely sign up for my free email newsletter at anniehelpsyou.com. In the newsletter, I do a write-up of the general transits with all of the sweet aspects, the salty aspects, what the aspects are, the dates of the aspects, what you can expect from them, plus a general write-up of the tone of the month, including my special retrograde focus. Since we've got so much of a retrograde dominated year, I have my retrograde special information in the newsletter so that you can be tracking the dates of the shadow periods and the retrogrades, and you can kind of keep track of what's happening here. Plus links to resources that I've created on how to maximize the retrogrades, because they don't have to be a bad thing. It's just something to understand so you can roll with the energies instead of working against them. You can also see many blogs, including my massive Venus retrograde blog series at anniehelpsyou.com. Venus retrograde shadow period starts after April 9th, so you're going to want to get up on that transit. It rules love, beauty, and money, so a massive amount of dominion over our lives. And I've got tons of resources, including a really great video on this topic. And you can just search for Venus retrograde Annie. Probably will show up, but you can just put my Annie Botticelli Venus retrograde and all those things will show up. You can, if you want to study astrology, either for personal or professional purposes, then definitely go to anniehelpsyou.com or lumelife.com, L-U-M-E life.com, which is my school, Luminous Life Multiversity. And you can see my course, Becoming a Professional Astrologer Mastery Course. If you think I go into details in these horoscopes, I go into it like a crazy amount of details with visuals and all kinds of things that you need in order to bring astrology into your life in a bigger way for your personal purposes or to do astrology professionally. I will teach you everything you need to be a professional astrologer, to use it as all or part of one of your professional offerings, and how you can actually make money doing astrology. I'm a business coach as well, so I wrap that in there too. So you can check all of that out. If you want to have written horoscopes by me, you can go to cozybysweetstarlight.com. It's a beautiful site that has healthy lifestyle blogs and also written horoscopes by me 1 month early, and also has a wonderful astrology for wellness section with yoga for the sun moving through each sign, herbal tea blends for the sun moving through each sign, how to maximize the sun's movement through each sign. So it's just another astrological study wonderland there. So I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.